All right, so here we are again. This is AWC TV episode 5. We thought we'd catch up with Coach Badon, who got started, or was with the early years of Arlington Wrestling High School and Arlington Wrestling Club, and was also on the forefront of girls wrestling in Tennessee, and kind of our go-to guy with any USA Wrestling questions, especially when it comes to girls wrestling. So, Doug, appreciate you kind of joining us today. Take some time out of your day. Just, for real quick, 'cause I don't know the full history. I know you, but I don't know your full history. So where did you get started wrestling? How did you get into wrestling when you were younger?
Kind of always been around wrestling. My dad coached there in Memphis. So I have pictures of me as a baby on a mat. I wrestled my first match when I was like 4. Luckily back then, everything that was in the off season and there wasn't really a youth season.
Right.
The only thing available to youth was really freestyle. And so I'm thankful I got to start out with freestyle because it made an impact on my later years in folk style. If you learn to never turn to your back, you never get put on your back. So it helped a lot.
That's true.
We moved from Memphis when I was 4 or 5 to Clarksville and then down to Franklin. I wrestled high school at Franklin. I was on the state championship team in '89. I was before the split of public and private and small school and everything. Lived all over the country. Recently came back to Tennessee when I came to Arlington. Coached in Wisconsin, Kansas, Oklahoma, Kentucky.
Oh wow! Yeah, I didn't know all
that. Yeah, it was great. That was part of the reason why I took the jobs I did was to expand my wrestling knowledge and be able to coach with some good coaches. So it was beneficial.
Okay. So you moved back to Arlington. Was your son in high school then, or was he still in middle school?
He was a junior in high school when we moved to Arlington.
So did you come on the high school team right away?
Yeah, I didn't move the family there until the summer before his junior year. And that previous year I had moved there. We were trying to decide where to go, what area to move to. One of my dad's wrestlers coached at Germantown. And so it was really likely that we were going to end up, moving in that area and having my son wrestle there for him. But found out about Israel at Arlington. I started coming over there and helping. I liked the way he had it, started up and structuring to build a long-term program. You see a lot of programs that start up and you'll, if that coach moves on, it falls apart. A real test of a good program is when that coach moves on. If it still stays strong, that's a well-built program, and that the building blocks of that was what I was seeing at Arlington. So that's why we decided to move there. I thought I wasn't really wanting to coach my son too much. I wanted to be a dad when it came to him, and I thought it was a good choice for where to send my kid.
Gotcha. What were some of the challenges of that team in the early years?
Oh, that little bitty wrestling room.
Yeah,
that was a challenge. There's a whole lot of high school kids in one little bitty room.
Yeah.
We had to do them in shifts. It was challenging. Israel made the best out of a difficult situation.
For sure. It's funny now we only use that room for little kids.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that club and high school program was in that one little bitty room. And one year we had a huge amount of kids, and they wouldn't quit. They just kept on staying around. It was like 45 kids in a little bitty room.
Oh wow!
And by kids I mean high schoolers. So it was just it's way too many.
Yeah, that's a huge team. Israel talked to us last week about getting started with milk crates full of bricks and some old tires. So you guys
Yep.
coming in with some experience, yeah, how did your son take to it? Was he one of the more experienced guys on the team? Or?
He was him. A couple others had wrestled, I guess, in the club there before I got there.
Okay.
Chandler Duncan, a couple of the others had a good bit of experience on their belt, so it wasn't a terribly inexperienced team.
Okay.
But it wasn't. It didn't have the depth that y'all have built there now, and that doesn't happen overnight. That
Right.
it takes a long time. Sorry, it's a little hot in the house. It takes a long time to build that up. So.
Yep. So you were helping high school, and at times you were kind of helping out with the club. Did you get involved with those the same years, or was there a gap in between?
I think I started out with the high school first, and then I started coming over helping with the youth. I think it was about the time that that y'all started there. Initially, my daughter started with the club before I did. Um, I can kind of go into that later when we start talking about girls wrestling. But I and then after she got more involved, and I started coming over more. My time professionally, that wasn't a high point in my career in Memphis, and it was hard for me to allocate enough time to coach.
Right.
And so it was a good experience, but it was hard just because of all the challenges I had going on personally. But.
Right. So you were around for the early years. What do you remember about the club? How and when it got started, or was on its way up, I guess.
Um, when it first started out, it was fairly inexperienced. A lot of new kids, but a huge amount of kids. Y'all did a great job of getting them excited about wrestling and getting them hooked into the program. Y'all focused on technique, which is um, a lot of coaches just focus on grappling, general grappling, rolling around, and everybody being tough and having a tough practice. Y'all focused on skills, and that I loved what y'all had going on there. You know, you can make anybody tough, but you can't give everybody skills. You can't give everybody heart. So um, that was the big thing for me, was that y'all were focusing on skill set versus just constant grappling. So.
Yeah, Ivan was very detailed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had to kind of find the balance of how we build the skill set and the strength and the intensity, and try to still feeling our way, just keep getting better.
Yeah, and everybody was really receptive. Like there was, as it grew, there were more and more coaches coming on board. Everybody seemed receptive to new ideas and things. Where at the same time, a club should be structured to um, bolster your high school program, because that's the end goal, right? Is to get them into high school, get them ready for college, ultimately. And so you want the skill set coach in middle school and youth to be in line with what's being taught or managed in high school. Hopefully, by the time they get to high school, you have them fully trained up with what the plan is in high school and the skill set is, and at that point, it's just managing high level athletes. And Arlington's. It takes a long time to get to that point, and Arlington's finally at that point. It's a beautiful thing to watch. I'm thankful to have been part of it, um, and thankful to have been involved with some of the coaches there that was.
Yeah, we appreciate all that. So what were the things, so you talked about, you had to spend some time with Coach Israel and before you guys settled into Arlington. So what were the things you saw at both the high school and the club that you think kind of helped us get there?
Hmm.
What sealed the deal for Coach Badon to settle in Arlington?
Well, I like the way Israel did things. You know, we wrestled together. We were practice partners in high school.
Okay.
Um, and so that he was, uh, you know, his way of doing things was very similar to mine. Um, and you know, my focus usually when I'm, you know, coaching is on teaching skills, and you know, he let me do that. You know, it was my primary function, and so it was nice to you know be able to come in and do that. He had you know trust in me, and I had trust in him, so that was a good thing. Ivan seemed to be attentive and on top of everything, and he had a good vision of where he was wanting to take everything, and so it was you know I could tell it was going to be something special.
Cool. I know so after your son graduated, you got involved more with the club, and your daughter wrestled for us when she was in middle school. Um,
Yep.
one of my favorite memories of what little time I spent with middle schoolers back then is she was one of the few that actually made eye contact through the entire drill or instruction. So that's always something
Yeah.
I've always appreciated, as it is hard, especially younger kids, to get them to pay attention. So can you talk a little bit about how she got started?
Hold on. I accidentally left my youngest daughter out of the house. I want to call Sweetie. So sorry, what was the question again?
So I was just commenting on Isabella when she got started. That's when you're obviously your passion for girls wrestling grew. Can you
Yep.
talk a little bit about when she got started and how that kind of led to a lot of success in high school?
Well,
That was a lot of fun.
so I was against girls wrestling. I was firmly against girls wrestling. When I moved to Arlington before my family came out, Bella had been asking for years to start wrestling, and I'd always said no. And while I was gone, in my, you know, before the family came out, my wife had put my daughter in wrestling uh, while I was in Arlington, and they were back in
Yeah.
Nashville. And I didn't know about it until she'd been in it for like a month, and but then it became an issue because nobody would practice with her, and so she, you know, that whole season, she just drilled moves by herself in the corner, and and you know, I was a little irritated. So it was like I didn't think it was healthy for her to be in it because I knew that was going to happen. And she was always kind of a sweet, passive girl, and I just didn't think it. You know, I didn't think it was going to be healthy for her, and to endure that. And then when they finally moved out to Arlington, she begged to be um, on the Arlington team, and I relented and let her, you know, get on there. And every now and then I'd go into practice, and she was always, you know, the boys didn't want to practice with her, so a lot of times she was, you know, by herself. But you know, when she was with them, she got her butt kicked frequently. And and then one day I was in there watching, and she kept, I mean, kept on really kicking her butt, but she kept on getting up. And so when I look for who has potential, especially in young kids, um, you'll always have kids that are more athletic than others, but you can't teach somebody to get up. And she just kept getting up. And she got, you know, her butt kicked, and she'd go flying and land on the mat, and then she'd get back up. And she busted her nose, and there's blood all over the side of her face. And she, you know, got back up, and she wiped it off her face and plastered her this piece of hair that was down in her face back with her blood. I'm like, oh, that's the most awesome wrestling thing I've ever seen. And I was like, huh, she's a wrestler. And I hadn't identified it, and because that's what I look for. I don't look for the kid that is killing everybody in practice. I look for the kid that keeps getting up, because a kid that starts out winning everything because he's just a natural better athlete with what God gave him, or maybe he, climbed more trees as a little kid. Um, you can make up for that in the weight room, and teaching a kid to be more athletic and get them, involved in CrossFit, involved in things that will bolster those areas. But you can't teach a kid to get up when things are hard. And so, if you look at the ones who came from Arlington Wrestling Club that produced when they got in high school, when they were in Arlington Wrestling Club, most of them were getting their butt kicked. I mean, Aaron, boy, that was man. Um, uh, Luke Kearns and Bella. Luke was the first wrestler to come over and practice with Bella, and I'll always be really beholding to him, because it meant a lot to her, that he started practicing with her. But neither one of them were setting the world on fire in youth wrestling, and both of them end up in the state finals on the same day, almost at the same time.
It was yeah.
It was beautiful to see. It was a picture. The picture of them two together with their medals is I'll cherish that forever. Mainly because I think so much of him, but also I know where they started out, and both of them have that heart of a wrestler that you try and identify and nurture and build into something that gets them where they ended up.
Wow, that was great. So you guys moved away from Arlington
Yeah.
for you guys end up going to Boone High School, and then Isabella becomes a 4-time state champ. So you went from complete mindset change to be now you're the USA Wrestling director for women's wrestling. So
Yep.
what do you how has Tennessee wrestling, especially women's wrestling, how has Tennessee women's wrestling grown over the years? What do you guys do to help drive it?
Yeah. So when Bella was a freshman and we started looking at taking in a national tournament, kind of when I realized, oh, she's going to be really good. When we started taking the national tournaments, there's nobody from Tennessee wrestling at that level. And if she's winning state as a freshman, then I want to up her competition level if she's going to fully achieve her dreams, right? And so when I realized nobody was doing anything, that got the ball rolling for me to start something up. I teamed up with Junior Hernandez and out of Knoxville, and then there was a coach that moved here from Clovis, California, Coach Scott. They, when I brought it up, they were on board, and the three of us kind of started the women's national team. The first year when Bella was a freshman, we had 4 total girls, with really only Bella. Well, I won't go into that, but Kenya and Bella were on that team, and that was eye opening because the level of wrestling out of Tennessee is so much better. We started identifying some of the weak points in Tennessee, in that most of the girls in Tennessee really aren't, in their high school practice, aren't required to do everything that, let's say, the boys are doing. It's one thing to expect a girl to do as many push-ups as a boy is. It's another thing to not expect them to do everything that everybody else is doing. And so we started putting together a plan to have regional practices for girls all over the state. I wanted to make my daughter better, so I recruited every girl that placed in state in her weight class and the 2 adjacent weight classes. Because if I make them better, then that makes her better, and by making her competition better, because she gets better matches in state and we don't have to travel so far to get good matches. And it worked. I mean, her senior year, she wrestled the All-American in the state finals. Um, whereas, her freshman year, it wasn't, nearly as difficult. So it's grown from 4 girls to we have about 65 total that are involved with this. We have 100, I think it's 123 that are involved with USA Wrestling, some shape, form, or fashion, and that started out from 4, and so it's grown a lot. But I think the biggest thing is by getting it. We've grown from us 3 coaches to now there's like 14 coaches, and every time we get a coach to come into one of our practices and get on board, a lot of them switch over and really focus on girls a lot more. It's been really awesome to see it grow. For somebody that started out not in favor of girls wrestling, I prefer it. In girls wrestling, it's not adrenaline and testosterone fueled. It's skill fueled, and it's a little bit more of a science at a higher level. And I just really prefer it. And I have practices here, regional practices, and we'll have anywhere from 20 to 30 girls at our practices 3 days a week. And they, when I'm showing moves, everybody's paying attention, and which is that just never happens with boys. And right. And honestly, if I have a couple that don't, I'm pretty strict, and some of it is because not all coaches were tough on them in practice. I felt like to get them ready for college coaches, I had to be more of a jerk. So I won't say that all of them like me. I think they appreciate me, but I don't know if all of them like me, because in practices I am, if somebody happens to be talking or something, I kick them out and make them look through the little window, and until they're ready to come back in. But it has been, that doesn't happen much. But I've always kind of been that type of coach. I don't really have time to. My time's valuable, and I have time to coach people that don't want to be there or aren't serious about being there. So.
Yeah, that's great. It's been huge, and you kind of see it not just in Tennessee, but you see it growing all over the country. I know in the past year, I've seen so many Facebook alerts about new colleges or new women's college programs. And it's grown 100+%.
Oh yeah. Oh,
year? 200%.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're at 97 college programs now. And I think that actually got set back by this Corona thing, because now some of the ones that we're planning on announcing this spring have not announced because they're not sure what's going to go on next season. Right. There were some big names that we were expecting to open up this year, and just because I know some of the college coaches and where they had looked at applying, and talked about some of the girls, and hey, no, this might be coming up, So I knew about some things that were opening up, and those announcements haven't been made. When I first started, I think there was 30 or 35 college women's programs. Now there's, like I said, I think the last count's like 97. So pretty substantial.
That's great.
Yep.
That's great. So I'm assuming you got some connections now.
Yeah. The recruiting on the girls' college side is really different. They really, coaches show up at national tournaments, and it's called Body Bar, but it's a World Team Trials. One of the there's a Brands that wrestles now, and one of the Brands brothers was at Body Bar coaching her, and just kind of realize you're standing next to Brands, and then I turn around and bump into Terry Steiner, and it's been a pretty neat experience as far as some of the people that, come to those tournaments that you have really open access to just sit down and talk with. It's
Yeah.
been kind of a neat experience.
I assume they're a little different than their flow film when you run into them.
Yep. Very personable, great guys. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good part about the sport. No matter who you run into, or even who we bring in, they'll always sit down, and have a conversation, and willing to talk down to earth. So,
Yeah.
Jermaine, do you have any questions about?
Yeah, Coach. What is your vision for women's wrestling over the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you see it going?
Right now, the big growth area is Memphis. That's the area that we've got to grow out. They just had their first recent college signee there from Israel's program at Central. His senior girl signed with King.
Okay.
And so, right now you have the Bartlett girl, who I think is the best prospect freshman in the state this year. I think she's going to be very impressive. Maggie. Collierville has a full squad. And then you have one Cordova girl, and then 4 girls at Central. We need to grow the programs in Memphis. I'd like to see Arlington get a high school girls program. Considering, Tennessee just had their first 2, because Kenya and Bella both placed at college nationals this year, and it's the first girls from Tennessee to place at college nationals, and one of those girls came from the Arlington wrestling program, and Arlington doesn't have a program. Not to call y'all out, you need to start a girls program. Y'all got like 1 million coaches, you can spare a couple. So, just saying.
Definitely.
So if you have coaches, if you're talking to coaches and you want to send a message to coaches that aren't sure if their daughter should wrestle, thinking about your experience, what would you say to them?
It has been the most fulfilling experience of my life as a coach. Dealing with these girls, the hunger is the same as boys. That not every boy has that hunger. Not every girl has that hunger. But the percentage of them that are there, the percentage that want to be that next level athlete is the same. And honestly, coaching them is a whole lot easier. Recently in boys wrestling, you almost have to before a kid will listen to you, you almost have to give them your resume to prove to them that you know what you're talking about before they listen to you, even though they've never wrestled before. And but on the girls' side, they just yes sir, and go out and do it. And it's been a wonderful experience, and I'm so thankful to all the coaches that have come on board and been a part of it. Kind of amazed at some of the. One of the coaches that helped us was 3-time world team member and Olympic alternate. He lives up in the Tri-Cities. He hadn't been coaching. He was doing jiu-jitsu, and then came over and started coaching on the girls' side. And when you have people at that level come on board and start giving their knowledge to these girls, it's kind of, I don't know, it's humbling. It's just amazing that I'm able to coach with some of the coaches that I'm a coach with currently.
Hey, Coach, can you talk a little bit about your challenges of being the dad and the coach?
Oh, oh man, it's hard. I usually discourage it. Things. I never had any issues with my son. He had some trials in his life, I guess you could say, and which probably kept him distracted, but from the normal teenage rebellion. Um, and so there wasn't an issue there. With Bella, everything was perfect until she got injured. And then she started she started questioning herself, and then she started questioning her coaches and just everything. And so Bella dislocated her hip and fractured her pelvis and tore all sorts of crazy stuff. We didn't think she was ever going to wrestle again. It was a freak accident that I've never seen, never even heard of. And there was only 4 surgeons that could do the surgery. So it was just a freak injury that normally wouldn't happen. And so, but it caused, it caused what was a great coach, parent, wrestler, relationship to start to be some turmoil. So at that point, I kind of took a step back, and luckily a wrestler from King, Cassie Farrell, came on board, and she started working more with them. And it it is, whether it's a boy or a girl, it is hard to be a coach and a dad, because a coach is supposed to be tough on a wrestler, and they don't want to get back up, and tell them to get back up, um, and constantly pushing them. Whereas a parent is supposed to be there and be supportive, put their arm around them, tell them it's going to be okay. And that's a hard boundary to walk, when you're trying to do both. And I don't encourage it. And if you do, you definitely need to identify when the kid, the father daughter or father son relationship starts diminishing, because it doesn't matter if you end up with a state champ or a college wrestler or Olympic champion. If they are not talking to you at that point, then it was kind of pointless. And you can say my kid's an Olympian, if over the top goals there, but you know uh, that doesn't make up for Thanksgiving dinner and going fishing. So I do I do suggest not whenever possible.
Yeah. That's a hard transition when you've done it for years. I can tell you going through that with Aiden. Once he got to high school, it was, it's hard. We needed more of the dad needs his own high school experience.
Yeah.
It was harder for me than it was for him.
It is, and it's hard. And when it's funny, when Bella got injured, um, I ran out on the mat. I knew she was injured by the way she screamed. I knew it was bad. And normally, when the kids get injured, I don't touch them. I'm very, professional. I'm like asking them questions. Is this okay? Is that okay? What's going on with this? That, explain to me what you're feeling, everything like that. And then you start, putting hands on. I go out there and immediately grab her leg and start moving it around. Because at that point, because I was her dad and my child was hurting, I could not think in a professional manner in the way that you need to as a coach. And it's best to have somebody else sitting in that chair.
Yeah. Zoom is giving me a countdown here. I don't know if it's going to kick us off or not. Jermaine, do you have anything else you wanted to ask? I don't want to.
No, that's it. I appreciate listening to Coach. I enjoyed the stories, and I think I'm gonna let my daughter listen to this stories about your daughter.
Well, I always answer my phone if anybody ever wants to call and ask questions or any advice and whatnot, and wants to come to our practices, whatever. Feel free, give me a call anytime. I work for the phone company, so I got 10 phones on me all the time.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah. And we really appreciate your time. I didn't know, I knew you. We've kind of coached close to each other at least once or twice. So I think it was good kind of catching up and understanding the perspective and things you guys went through. So I think it's very valuable for people thinking about it to kind of see that and hear it.
I hope it was okay.
I
I tend to ramble, so I don't know.
Oh, that's good.
That's it. It's just a conversation. That's all it is. Just people telling their stories. I thought it was great. So we tell the family we said hello. I'm sure we'll see them again at some point next season.
Okay. All right.
Cool.
Thank you all very much.
All right,
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it.
see you later.
All right. Bye.